So Lincoln Riley thinks a rule needs to be changed, and I think we're starting to have a depth problem on defense.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you are going to download this podcast, this show is always going to be free, and you know I'm always going to appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so you already know that USC is down one defensive tackle for the rest of the year. He's taken a red shirt, but at least with that position group, you know, there's depth, there's some versatility in that room, in the defensive line room. Not so much at linebacker. And I'm talking about experience depth. Coach Riley was asked about a couple of the upperclassmen who are choosing to redshirt this season after playing 4 games. So after Tuesday's practice, we always get to talk with Coach Riley. He was asked about defensive tackle Bear Alexander, who's no longer a member of the program. He said, he basically punted and said, I've said all we're going to say on this matter. End of story. Close the book. That was the final chapter, at least as far as USC is concerned. But what about Raesjon Davis, linebacker, senior linebacker? So Coach Riley did confirm after practice that Raesjon is going to use his redshirt season, and he does plan to return in 2025. Basically, it came down to this. He's not getting the playing time and the reps this year on defense. He's a big-time special teams player, but right now it's Mason Cobb and Easton Mascarenas-Arnold. They're going to be moving on after the season. So they're going to, hopefully be playing in the NFL. So we're going to see what happens. All of a sudden now, when Raesjon comes back in 2025, he's going to be, one of the few upperclassmen. I'm assuming Eric Gentry will still be around. I think he still has another year of eligibility left. Now, because he is redshirting for the rest of the regular season, the next time you'll be able to see Raesjon wearing in a game this season, USC in a bowl game or the postseason, either or. So we'll see what happens. Now, this is what Coach Riley said about Raesjon. He's a senior. He's not playing significant playing snaps right now. He's done some really good things. He's had a big-time special teams play for us the other day. He came in, it was a really solid hit. And so he came into the office. We chatted about it. You can understand both sides of it. It'll be something that'll have to be addressed, big picture, putting teams, players, all that in these positions. This 4-game red shirt, I think there's probably some better ways to do it than maybe the way we're doing it right now. But as long as we have it, we're going to have some situations like this currently. You understand this push-pull. This kid really wants to play, but he also wants a chance to play more defense on defense too. We'll watch it play out. Nothing's set in stone right now. That option's out there, but we'll see how the season evolves and how it evolves for Raesjon. Close quote. So that was Coach Riley explaining why Raesjon asked to redshirt this year. He decided to add his own opinion on the whole redshirt system in general. This is, again, Coach Riley talking after Tuesday's practice. I think guys should have 5 years. Do whatever you want, play as much as you want, or as little as you want. And the only way you get an extra year is if you have 2 season-ending injuries and miss the whole season. I think it should be that plain. Simple and be done. And then nobody will have to worry about this other crap about how many games you've played and all that. I understand why it's there, but I still think it's a little bit behind the times. Close quote. So I actually agree with Coach Riley on this. let's change the rule. It really is, it's archaic with the way the transfer portal's out there and everything that's involved. It's time to say, you know what? You got 5 years of eligibility. Use it however you want. If you want an extra year, or if you want to use that 5th year or get an extra year, it has to be because of, medical issues. I'm okay with that. Let's see what happens. Let's see what kind of sway Coach Riley has with the rules committee. And I'm sure this has been up for consideration. This isn't some novice idea. Pardon me. Now, I'm a huge Raesjon Davis fan. I really do anticipate and look forward to him coming back for the 2025 season. With that said, keep an eye on that spring transfer portal window. Okay, that's going to be, you'll know if he's sticking around. If he makes it through, if he decides, you know what, I'm not jumping in that spring portal, obviously he'll be around for the rest of the year. But that's the window to look at. So I guess because of Raesjon now in the red shirt, he's not in the transfer portal, he's going to wear the red shirt for the year. He gets to still practice with the team. He's not making any waves. In fact, today he was playing scout team defense. He's going to do whatever it takes to make this team better. But with Raesjon redshirting, Eric Gentry is questionable for this game against Minnesota. That's per Coach Riley after practice. That means we're going deeper into the depth chart. And I think this is where, that hybrid role that Anthony Beavers Jr. has been playing, kind of that hybrid nickel, outside, weak side linebacker. He's probably going to slide into the linebacker room, I would say, for the rest of the season, I would imagine. You need some experience back there. Garrison Madden, again, today, he's working scout team defense right now. After that, you've got 3 true freshmen. You got Elijah Newby, you got Jaden Walker, you got Desmond Stevens II. So are you concerned? Should there be a concern? And I'm saying this because as great as Eric Gentry has been so far this season, I mean, he's been phenomenal. He is injury prone. And I'm not quite sure what his injury is, shoulder, neck, somewhere in that area. Either way, he's probably not going to be active this week. Again, when Coach Riley says you're questionable, if you got some money to bet it on that player not playing. That's just, if you follow Coach Riley, typically that's the way it is. You had Mason Cobb, big pick 6 against Wisconsin, but he's already missed a game this year. Again, knock on wood, he's not going to get injured anymore this year, but he has a tendency to get dinged up. Not the biggest guy. So again, I think we're going to find out real quick how fast the freshman can get up to speed, because you're going to need to be able to rotate at the linebacker position. You can't just go in there with Mason Cobb, Easton Mascarenas Arnold, Anthony Beavers Jr. They can get the job done, but you're going up against a team that likes to run the ball like Minnesota. They like to run the rock. You're going to have some depth at the linebacker position. So we'll see what happens. We get to talk with Danton Lynn tomorrow, Wednesday after practice. So you're watching this episode of Locked on USC on Wednesday, making your first listen every day. Sometime later today, I'll be at practice. We'll talk with Danton Lynn. We'll get some defensive players. We'll see what kind of feedback we have as far as if there's any concern at the linebacker position. In the next segment, I'm going to tell you what Coach Riley had to say when I asked him about the offense and their slow start so far this season. When was the last time you went to a concert, comedy show, any live event, a USC game? Game Time has this new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. Really cool. And it makes getting tickets for your favorite live event really easy. I mean, really, really easy. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff. It's only going to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. That's pretty cool. And you already know I like their feature that you can see your seat before you check out, kind of give you a bird's eye view. Oh, you just put your cursor over this. It'll really kind of zoom in. Hey, if you're sitting here, that's your view. That is a really good feature. You got to take advantage of that. So if you haven't been to a game yet, use Game Time. Get your tickets to a Trojan game. And if you're worried about, making sure you're getting the best price, don't worry about it. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time is actually going to credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So, we just have an earthquake. Anyways, so I want to know I asked if Coach Riley was concerned about his offenses having some slow starts. So, in case you weren't aware, if you missed yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, you shouldn't. You should be watching the show every day. USC scored a touchdown against Wisconsin on their opening drive. Okay, seems normal. Well, it's not. Not this year. It was the first time they scored a touchdown on their first opening drive of the season. This entire season. Excuse me. The last time they did that was against Washington. That was in November 2023. So I asked the question, are you concerned about only scoring on your first, against Wisconsin? That was the first time on your first drive of the game where you actually scored. And Coach Riley corrected me and said, because I should have said your first touchdown. They did kick a field goal against Utah State. So he made sure I was aware of that, which is fine. If we're going to be precise and technical, he's correct. I'm not sure that made the argument any stronger. Nevertheless, here is his answer to USC's slow starts on offense. It's less to me the start of it and more just being able to sustain it longer. We've had a few stretches, but you want to be able to start and sustain it. And if we don't have it, we've got to be able to snap out of it and find it a little bit quicker. I think more of that than directly beginning, middle, or end of the game, quote. Because essentially, once the second half rolls around, these guys are pretty sharp, both sides of the ball. But more importantly, right now, I'm talking about the offense. So, Coach, I guess what he was conveying is, and without saying it in this many words, was stop making so many mistakes that stop the drive from finishing what they're starting. He's right. They've had some really great drives to start the game, but for whatever reason, they kind of, trip, fall over, make a mental mistake, and things just aren't working out the way they should. I mean, he was right. They had that easy drop pass against Utah State. That's why they ended up with a field goal instead of, letting the drive finish and possibly scoring a touchdown. Their second drive against LSU, they went 87 yards, scored a touchdown. Dropped the first one though. Nothing's been easy on offense. So the real issue, and I think what Coach Riley was pointing out, is that against LSU and Michigan and Wisconsin, is that, they've gone 6 straight drives without a touchdown in each of those games. That, and you combine that with, some other stuff, that's not the way you want your offense to start the game. So again, here's the question. Why is the team sharper in the second half than the first half? I think Coach definitely said in a lot of words, execution needs to be more consistent. Finish the drives that are picking up the yards. So whatever you're starting, finish it. And he's right. The other issue that's causing some challenges with the offense is the offensive line. It's pretty evident. it's been an issue, specifically at two spots. And he spoke about it after practice on Tuesday. This is what he had to say about the right guard position, which has been it's been an issue. Alani, Noah, and Amos Palalele both did some really good things in the game, talking about Wisconsin. I thought it was good being able to rotate those guys sometimes for young players that haven't played a ton. That can be kind of a good segue into the later parts of a career as they, continue to improve. Me personally, I'm thinking settling on one guy is probably the better course of action rather than saying, hey, this will work out for the better in the later parts of their career. And we asked Jonah Monheim about it. Is it making your job more difficult? And this is what he had to say. Because I kind of think that Jonah feels the same way. Even though he kind of deflected after practice, this is what he said. Yeah, that's up to coach. I'm good with whatever he does. He does what's best for the team. Those guys, both of them, they're preparing hard every day, so it's a little bit of a change, but at the end of the day, you just got to keep a good mindset. So there you go. Jonah's not going to say, yeah, it's pissing me off. But it's difficult when you're calling out the signals, making sure everybody's on the same page. And then also you're like, do I have to do my job and his job? That's when you have one guy that's in there consistently doing it over and over and over, that's going to make Jonah's job easier. It's going to make the offensive line play better. If both Alani and Amos were playing equally great and they weren't having issues during the game, great. Keep playing them. But right now they're not. I think they got to settle in on someone. So again, I asked Jonah, I wanted to see if he was in concert with Coach Riley regarding their slow starts. And he did acknowledge the last 2 weeks. He said it's hard to point to one thing, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to execution. So yeah, I think everyone would agree it always comes down to executing. Jonah said, look, we just need all 11 guys doing their job at the same time. So that's exactly how you kind of point the fingers at everybody without naming names, right? The other spot on the offensive line, left tackle. It's been getting better at right tackle. Mason's getting better game by game. So, again, Coach Riley said both Alani and Amos, they showed and did enough during the game that they're going to continue to rep both guys. He also added that, Elijah Page, he bounced back a bit in this game against Wisconsin, played quite a bit better than he did the week before, was the exact quote. So we'll see. Can Elijah Page build off of the game against Wisconsin? Again, going back on the road, hostile environment, should be a loud crowd. It's going to be incumbent that Elijah continue to get better game by game. Now, maybe you're wondering, how come if they're struggling at right guard, why isn't Gino Quinones getting some extra playing time, taking over for the underclassmen? Coach Riley addressed that after practice. He said that was in part because he's the backup center right now. Well, heaven, if Jonah needed to be moved or he went down with injury, whatever, Gino's going to be the next man up at center. And that's because Killian O'Connor has been out due to an injury. Oh, by the way, guess who's back? I was surprised. I didn't think he'd get back this quickly. But Killian's back, and he's practicing with the team. So that's going to allow Gino to be that swing guy. If they struggle at right guard, I have a feeling he's going to slide in. And whether or not he can play left tackle, I'm not sure. But again, Gino adds some versatility. If it gets to the point that they just have no other solution, that in order to protect Miller's blind side, they have to slide Jonah back out to left tackle. Hopefully we don't have to cross that bridge. But then you've got Killian or Gino being able to bounce right in and take over at center. And if that right guard is a position is still an issue, Gino slides in a right guard, Killian takes over at center. So again, Killian's back, which is great news. I know that dislocated knees look really, really bad. But what was really key about this is nothing was broken, and the ligaments essentially sustained minimal damage, no tears, which is great. That's why Killian is back as quickly as he is, working out with the team, and hopefully he gets just to carry the clipboard. I want Killian to play, but I want him to play during mop-up time because USC is winning by 30 points going into the fourth quarter. So we'll see what else. I think a couple other things that Coach Raleigh talked about after practice as far as injuries. Achille Arnold, questionable. And I think I already mentioned Eric Gentry, also questionable. So we'll see where that goes. All right. I got one more segment to go, and that's coming up next. We're going to talk a little bit about Minnesota, kind of get to know them. We've got a few more shows this week before USC and the Golden Gophers kickoff in Minneapolis. So who is Minnesota? Hey, are you an NFL fan? Are you a Minnesota Vikings fan? Sam Darnold, undefeated, starting quarterback. Jordan Addison, wide receiver. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So you're watching that Minnesota Vikings game, and hey, what's going on in the other game I bet on? Check this out. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and you can do a lot more than that on the same page where you're placing your bets. If you've never used FanDuel before, now you should be using it. Here's your chance. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, so USC's back on the road this weekend. They're traveling to the land of 10,000 lakes. Has anybody actually counted 10,000 lakes? Is that true? Or some of these lakes are these swamps? A lot of mosquitoes up there. That's all I know. But they'll be facing Minnesota Saturday night. Who, by the way, Minnesota's still looking for their first conference win this year. USC's looking for their first road conference win. Road conference win this year. We'll see who gets which first. I really hope it's USC. Now, Minnesota, I can't tell if they have a good defense or not. Statistically, they've got a great defense. Through 5 games. Check this out. The Golden Gophers have the #1 pass defense in the country. They're allowing just 98 yards per game. In contrast, USC, they're terrible. They're ranked 17th in the country, giving up 155 yards per game. Obviously, I was being sarcastic. That's an impressive stat for Minnesota. So far, against their secondary, when they're playing against the pass, the opponents have only completed 68 passes against 112 passing attempts. They've only given up 468 total yards through the air. They've only allowed 1 touchdown, and they've created 8 interceptions. Again, those are impressive stats. On the surface, those are really impressive stats. And just to kind of tie a bow on it, they're only allowing 133 yards on the ground. But let's peel back the layers. Who have they played so far? Why does Minnesota look so good on defense statistically? All right. Overall, Minnesota, they're 2-3 on the season. A game 1 at home against North Carolina, they lost 19-17. North Carolina does not have a quarterback right now. They've played at least 3 different quarterbacks this season. In that game against the Gophers, they played 2. You want to know their stats? The starter, he was 12 of 19, 71 yards, 3.7 yards per attempt. No touchdowns, 1 interception. The backup came in, Connor Harrell. He was 2 for 4, 34 yards. But that's it. 2 for 4, 34 yards. So 105 total passing yards in that game. Okay. It came against, an FBS Power 5 team, ACC, Mac Brown, North Carolina. The Tar Heels rushed for 147 yards that game. Then after that first loss, they had 2 more games at home, and they beat, we'll call them what, FCS. I believe they're FCS level. Rhode Island, 48-0. Then they beat Nevada, 27-0. Not UNLV, the Nevada Wolfpack. They're not very good. Again, I am not saying Minnesota does not have a good defense. They obviously do. But, okay, their next 2 losses, Iowa and Michigan. Ironically, they actually Iowa beat Minnesota with a big score, 31-14. Okay. I don't think anybody would say that Iowa or Michigan, their next opponent, who they just lost to, either one of them have good passing games. On the road in Ann Arbor, Minnesota lost 27-24, and it was a huge comeback by Minnesota. I think they scored 21 unanswered points, and it looked like they actually recovered the onside kick, but apparently they lined up off sides, and Michigan got to keep the ball. What else is new, right? Michigan getting home cooking. Not like USC fans don't know what that's all about. Just to kind of remind everybody, USC has a really good secondary. Michigan does not throw the ball well. USC held them to 37 passing yards. I think Michigan they improved to 87 yards, 82 yards against Minnesota. So we'll see how good Minnesota's pass defense really is. By far, Miller Moss and USC's wide receiver core is the best that Minnesota will have seen to date. We're going to see how good they are. On paper, they look great. Well, here comes Miller Moss. Here comes Deuce Robinson. Here comes Jacoby Lane, Zachariah Branch, Mekhi Lemon. He was back practicing. So USC, Minnesota, prime time, week 6, under the lights. It's going to be 4:30 on the West Coast, 6:30 kickoff time in Minnesota. USC is opening up as a 9.5-point favorite. And according to FanDuel, the over-under for this game, 50.5. Interesting. Interesting number. You're looking at Minnesota's defense saying, all right, can they keep USC down? Is it going to be Minnesota's defense or is it going to be USC's offense? If USC can start clicking, stop making mistakes, I think they're going to be okay. This is going to be the first time since 2011 that these two teams have played. By the way, the last time they played, USC beat them at the Coliseum 19-17. USC is 6-1-1 all time against Minnesota. The one loss, 1955 in Minnesota, at Minnesota. That score was 25-19. So is it weird? I don't know. I just realized. So Minnesota lost at home this year, 19-17 in North Carolina. The last time USC and Minnesota played, score was 19-17. And that was in LA. Again, Minnesota hasn't won a conference game this year. USC's been starting slow in offense. Is this a trap game all of a sudden? Prime time. Could be a little bit of a chill in the air. Trust me, weather is not going to be an issue. I looked at the weather app. High of 78 that day. Low of around 50. And that's not supposed to be till like midnight. So I don't want to hear that. It's not going to be an excuse. USC just needs to go in there ready to roll. Have the offense ready to roll the moment you step off the bus. I think USC's defense will be just fine. So we're going to talk more about Minnesota this week. Got a few more episodes of Locked On USC. We come at you 5 times a week. And don't forget, when you're done making Locked On USC, your first listen every day, don't forget about Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin, he's got that covered for you. And when you're done, make sure you're over there on wearesc.com. There is so much written content. There's some recruiting stuff going on. I might talk about that on the next episode. But anything you want to know about USC, Locked On USC. Make it your first listen every day. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.